Hi guys, it's Janae and welcome back to my channel, and today we are continuing the read along for Motu, otherwise known as silent reading, and I'm so excited because I've really been enjoying it so much, and I'm actually surprised to see a lot of you already here. Um, we shall still wait like the obligatory 5 minutes to make sure that if there is anyone who gets the notification, they want to like hop in, then they get the time to do that. But anyway, I'm excited. I wanted to ask you guys. Hi. Sorry. I wanted to ask you guys. So I went to Comic Con yesterday, and I actually managed to find some Danmei inspired things. Would you guys like me to quickly show you before we get started? Cause I'm so in love, and I just want to share it with anyone who's willing to to like take the time and listen to me. But anyway, hi. Oh no. Okay. Um. So today we are doing 2 hours as normal, and then at the like hour mark, I'm gonna take a quick 10-minute break to just grab some coffee. Cause right now I only have water, and I'm very sad about it. But it's so incredibly hot that I can't stomach the idea of anything else. Hi. So yeah, it's 32 degrees and it's 4 p.m. In the afternoon. So it shouldn't be this hot. But it is cuz summer has officially arrived in South Africa and I'm already dying. I love winter. I don't want summer to come. But anyway, okay, let me quickly, since you guys are up for it, let me quickly grab these so I can show you. Did I now forget the one? I did forget the one thing. Give me 2 seconds. Okay, there we go. Okay, so it's mostly MXTX, but I'm pretty sure I have one Urha thing. I'm saying pretty sure because I'm like this looks like them, but there was no confirmation anywhere that I could find. So here we go. Okay, so these are just small like postcard-ish things, and the art was just so freaking cute that I could not. I could not. I spent all of my money just on all of these things, and I'm very happy about it. So, so this one, I feel like if I wish I had somewhere to put it while we do the Scum Villain read-alongs because they're just so freaking cute. And then we have Little Apple with Lanjan and Wei Ying, and that just makes me so happy because it's such a family photo moment. And then this one. And I actually have like a little bit of a story connected to this, but I don't want to tell it just yet because there's something that like I might be able to sort out tomorrow, and if it gets sorted out, I shall tell you guys. But if not, then unfortunately I can't. But still, my friend got me this because I was just like, I was looking at him like, oh, I need this, but also what would I do with it? And then my friend was like, you don't need a justification, I'll get it for you. So that was really appreciated. Um, and then these pins, I have never owned a pin, and yet my brain was like, does it matter? Do you know where you're gonna put it? No. Are you still gonna buy it? Yes. So I've always loved Avatar: The Last Airbender. I think it's one of those really just keeps being good even years later type of shows. So then we have a little Totoro, and one of my absolute favorites we have a Hal and Sophie from Howl's Moving Castle. I just finished rereading the book, and I'm sorry, I accidentally just gave you guys the middle finger. That was oopsie. Hi. Okay, and then this is the one that I mentioned that I'm pretty sure is Urha. This, let me just, there we go. But I'm not 100%. I think it's Urha, right? And with the other thing, the thing that I specially got up to get. Oh, here we go. Ta-da! It's double-sided, so it looks pretty from both sides, and that just makes me extra happy. Okay, sorry. That was the brief interlude before we get started. Thank you guys for bearing with me. Um, but yeah, I think we can just get going because it's already 6 past. And oof. Oh, and also I recently got the Guardian uh, first volume, and I'm so excited about it. It's so beautiful. I really hope they buy Mordu at some point because that I would also love to own. Okay, now that my excitement is calming down, so we stopped at Director Zhang sent me to investigate Wang Huangliang, said Lu Wenzhou. I just received a report from an informer. I now suspect Wang Huangliang is colluding with the Flower Market District's drug trafficking gangs. That's where we stopped yesterday. We're just gonna be picking up. Just want to pop out the chat before we do. Thank you very much. Yes, I already. Well, actually, I haven't put in my order yet, but I am going to be, even though it takes forever. So hopefully, it will be here by the time that we finish out either um, Mordu or Scumvillain, chapter volume 2. I really want to read The Guardian finally, but I didn't want to wait months for the next volume. Fair enough. Okay. Director Liu frowned. The farm market district is very advanced in fighting drugs. That's right. Don't you think it's funny how they can have so many accurate informers, each leading to an arrest? Lowen spoke rapidly. The person who made the report said they have a network of specially licensed drug dealers. If anyone who isn't part of the organization sets foot into within the limits of the Flower Market District's jurisdiction, they'll be ferreted out immediately. Where's the evidence? Said Director Liu. I'm gathering it now, said Lo Wenjo. Getting back to the homicide case, yesterday we accidentally received evidence from the masses living around the crime scene, saying that they heard an argument around 9 p.m. Then Wang Hongliang quickly arrested a teenager we suspected was present at the scene at that time. The kid was very skinny, his gaze wanders, he rambles, he gets terrified in an instant. His testimony is full of holes, but no matter how we question him, he maintains that he hasn't seen anyone near the crime scene. Now we really have found evidence leading us. Oh, now we really have found evidence leading us to the suspect. Uh, the victim's body may have been moved. Oh, sorry, not to the suspect. Um, Now we really have found evidence leading us to suspect that the victim's body may have been moved after he was killed. So the question arises, if the argument the local citizens heard wasn't connected with the case, then why did the teenage suspect not dare to let the why am I struggling so much? Okay, let me try and refocus. I think I also just need to zoom in. I need to get new glasses. Is it possible to zoom in? I don't think I can. Oopsie. Okay, we shall just deal. It's fine. Um, then why did the teenage suspect not dare to tell the truth from the beginning? Why did the criminal policeman Xiao Hai Yang hint to me from the start that that wasn't the initial crime scene? Could he have known from the start that no murder had taken place there? Director Lu couldn't help getting up and pacing a few circles. Uncle Lu, said Lu Wenjo, the threads here are numerous and complicated. There's a lot of ambiguity. I suspect these two cases are connected. It was quite a coincidence that Taran and this Xiao Haiyang found Zhang Donglai. If I hadn't brought him back here at once, it's very likely Wang Huangliang would have seized on this and blown it out of proportion, forcing Director Zhang and us to cease our involvement. There's no saying, but that kid they arrested would have turned up at the South Bureau dead from a drug overdose tomorrow morning. All his testimony put down to the ravings of a drug addict. The murderer determined to be an arrogant rich kid. Oh, that's actually quite a devious way of looking at it. What are you planning to do? Asked Director Liu. For the moment, treat Zhang Donglai as the chief suspect, said Luo Wenzhou. As long as we appear to turn our attention away from the flower market district, separating these two connected cases, Wang Huangliang will probably push his boats along with the current and leave the homicide to us. The main criminal investigation team worked overtime investigating the surveillance footage Fei Du had provided. It was late at night when Luo Wenzhou got home. As soon as he opened the door, he heard a meow and a house cat stuck its head out. Luo Wenzhou gently pushed it back inside with his foot. What are you meowing at? I haven't eaten yet. Either, huh? He found a new package in the mailing box at his door and picked it up to take a look. Address, Luo Wenzhou, was written on it in a certain familiar regular script. Luo Wenzhou opened the package. Inside was a sealed evidence bag containing several cigarette butts. Oh, I didn't think he would actually send it to Luo Wenzhou. That's good. Okay, chapter 10. Julian, 9, I think. Luo Wenzhou upended the package. There was nothing else in it, but just then his phone vibrated as a photograph arrived. It was of an out-of-the-way gravel path decorated with neatly laid out vegetation and a water feature, secluded and narrow, with a solitary garbage can sticking out in the middle. Underneath was a message without beginning or end. In passing. Okay, very mysterious. Luo Wenzhou stared thoughtfully at the photograph for a while, but next to him, Master Cat wasn't having any of this. Master Cat's full name was Luo Guo. It was a 7-year-old middle-aged cat, round-faced, large-eyed, and sleek. It was just a little bad-tempered. I'm sorry, my brain immediately went to go, go like a dog, and I know that's not what it's about. But anyway, Luo Guo batted at Luo Wenzhou's leg, and with its paw, twisting its butt, it went over to the corner and crouched down, full of accusation, displaying an empty food bowl to its litter box attendant. Oh my goodness. Unexpectedly, the stupid tall one only gave it a glance and remained wholly unmoved. Suffering the rebuff, Luo Guo was enraged. It charged translucently and stood up on its hind legs, hugging Luo Wenzhou's calf, yowling as it tore at his pant leg. Oh my goodness, what a character. Luo Wenzhou bent and picked Luo Guo up by the scruff of its neck, holding it aloft. Have you had your fill of living? Paws dangling, Luo Guo rumbled out a purr, then complacently stuck its tongue out at him. Luo Wenzhou rolled his eyes and loosened his grip. The kitty deftly freed itself, gave an elegant roll in mid-air and landed on all fours. Its wish was quickly fulfilled. It received adequate dry food as well as a supplemental can of cat food. Oh my goodness. Loyuko is actually the funniest character in Modu. That's saying a lot, considering I find a lot of the characters quite hilarious. Loyuko was deeply satisfied. It found that the principle that a stick makes a filial son hadn't led it astray. Indeed, the litter box attendant wouldn't behave unless he was bitten. Lowenjo crouched haphazardly and petted the cat for a while. Suddenly remembering something, he looked down at Loiko's stick-up large fur tail. Taran had found this ancestor while strolling. I love it, this ancestor. Through the morning market and brought it to give to Feidu. At first, Feidu had seemed to like it, but a few days after carrying it off, he'd somehow gotten annoyed and absolutely refused to keep it. Taran had come from out of town. When he had just started working, he couldn't afford to buy a home and rent it all over. There was no saying where he would have to move. It really wasn't convenient for him to keep a pet. He'd had to put the cat up with Lo and Joe. So he'd kind of just acquired a cat in the process. The more I know about Lo and Joe, the more I love it. That cat really is more well written than some main characters I've read. The shade, oh goodness. Not that I disagree, but the shade nonetheless. Lo and Joe hated cats, hated dogs, hated children 16 years old and under. He'd been made He'd been mad enough to lose his mind. He had issued a solemn ultimatum to Taran, swearing that if he hadn't found another home for the cat within a month, he'd stew the four-legged nuisance in a pot. The upshot was that 7 years had passed in a flash. Another home hadn't been found, and Lowajo had gone from a foul-mouthed carnivore to a hard-working and ungrudging litter box attendant, while Luigo had gone from reserved provisions to the master of the house. I'm loving this. I am loving every single second of this. This shows that worldly affairs really are hard to predict. Lowenjo pondered a while as he pet the cat, then suddenly stood up, took some leftover bread from the fridge, and walked out. The street was relatively uncrowded as Captain Lowell, who liked nothing better than to arrive at work and leave exactly on schedule, returned to the city bureau. When he walked into the office, aside from the officer on duty, he found one other person who was still rubbing his eyes as he replayed the surveillance footage. Lowenjo's steps paused. He sighed. I knew you wouldn't have left yet. Taran stretched. I have nothing to do at home anyway. What are you doing back here? I felt sorry for you following this solitary path working overtime in the middle of the night, so I came to offer help to the needy. Lowenjo swaggered over next to him and sat down on his desk. Model worker, have you discovered anything? Chengguang Mansion's security system cameras are all external. Our technical staff has investigated all the footage from 8 p.m. to 10 p.m. on the night of the 20th. The external cameras caught Jiangdong Lai's face clearly 4 times in all. Going by facial recognition, there are 40 minutes during which he was neither on camera nor inside the club, but those 40 minutes are the product of addition. Oh, okay. Each time he left, it was for a comparatively short time. He only went out of his way to avoid the camera twice. Once was around 10, when he left with a girl for about 15 minutes. He deliberately looked up at where the camera was positioned. The second time was shortly before 12 a.m. After midnight, the cameras in the club's courtyard are all turned off, so I don't know what time he returned. That seems counterintuitive. I feel like those should be 24-hour cameras, but okay. Lowenjo rubbed his chin. 15 minutes? Taran nodded very earnestly. Right? If we find the girl, She should be able to act as a witness. Lowenjo shook his head. That's really fast. Taran. Dot dot dot. Before he could react, Lowenjo's tone changed. Like an upright gentleman, he asked, Is He Jong-yi on camera? No. The afternoon they picked out 20-some cameras that may have caught He Jong-yi, but none of them have his face on them. There are some that are further out. I've been replaying them to have a look. I think there's no one who looks like him. Do you really think that if the murderer had killed He Jong-yi at Changguang Mansion, he would have inadvertently gotten caught on camera? If the cameras at the entrances and exits didn't catch him, it's also possible that He Jong-yi himself was avoiding the security cameras. Lo Wen-jo stood up and paced behind Taran's back. But if there really wasn't anything there, Feidu wouldn't have given it to us. With over 4 hours on so many cameras, how could he have seen anything? He probably gave it to us as reference. Lo Wen-jo shook his head. After a while, he suddenly remembered something. What did you just say? They turn off the cameras in the courtyard after midnight? Okay, before we continue, can we just take a minute to appreciate the faith that Lo Wen-jo has in Feidu, being like, no, he wouldn't have given it to us if it just, was basically a wild goose chase or not that important. That's right. Only the ones in the parking lot and some surrounding paths stay on. The cameras are probably turned off so they don't catch a throng of drunkards making fools of themselves. The ones left are to ensure security. Lowenjo gripped the back of Taran's chair. The security cameras in the courtyard must be placed where they can be seen by guests, so they can easily be avoided if they want to. But outside the club, to make sure that no unidentified individuals make their way in, some of the cameras will be hidden. Pull up the footage from the ones that stay on all night. Before he'd finished speaking, Taran had already pulled them up. Lowenjo got out his phone and looked at the photograph he'd received. Is there a security camera installed on the gravel path next to the water feature? There is, actually, Taran said a little doubtfully. The timestamp on the security camera footage was 8 p.m. exactly. The whole screen was unmoving, pitch black. As they played it through on fast forward, the dark shadow blocking the screen popped away and freed up the camera lens. It had been a bird. The four corners of the recording were dark, with the image in the middle. It was obstructed from time to time by birds coming and going. Possibly the camera was concealed in a tree. Shortly before 8:50, a swaying human figure appeared near the garbage can under the security camera. Taran quickly paused the image. The person must have come to smoke beside the garbage can. He hadn't noticed the security camera in the tree. Okay, and I'm assuming that this is our person. Wait, this person. I think he looks about right. Taran carefully scrutinized the image for a moment, then sighed. If the cigarette ends were still there, we should be able to tell with a DNA comparison. But there was that rainstorm this afternoon. By now, it'll be... What are you smiling about? Lowenjo pulled the evidence bag containing some cigarette ends from his pocket. Go ahead and compare. Taran was astonished. Where did you... Shh. Quietly. Lowenjo put a finger to his lips and said almost inaudibly, A very obnoxious young person sent it to me. I can't. Oops, sorry. Taran seemed even more astonished. Have you two called a ceasefire? Lowenjo put a hand on the back of his head and returned it to its previous orientation. Are there any other leads nearby? Wait a sec. Saying this, Taran rolled out a marked up map. This path only goes to two places, Changguang Mansion at the one end and a public area at the other. This person clearly didn't go towards Changwon Mansion when he left. He went the other way. As soon as you get out onto the road, there is a bus stop. I like public areas, said Lowenjo with a smile. You can investigate around them without needing to play nice with these rich people. The two of them quickly left the city bureau, heading straight for the traffic police team near the bus stop. The night was thick, the dew about to descend. Lowenjo turned off the car's air conditioning and opened the window to air out the car. Any lead we find tonight, said Lowenjo, don't tell anyone else yet, including our colleagues on the team. Taran froze. What? Nothing. I figure that in a few days the Sub Bureau will formally request that the case be transferred to us, said Lowenjo. At the time, you'll concentrate on He Zhongyi's case. Leave the rest alone. Before we've tracked down the real killer, let Zhang Dongmai stay under suspicion for a few days. Maybe he'll even develop some memory. Oh goodness. Taran heard an unusual trace of solemnity in these words and couldn't resist tilting his head and looking at him. The corners of Lowenjo's eyes turned up. We're both single men. If you look at me like that again, I'll act like a brute. When do you guys think they're gonna accept that Taran is very straight? Flirting me with. Flirting me? Flirting with me is free, right? Taran very magnanimously waved his hand. That's right. I haven't seen you go out with anyone in a long time. What happened to that guy who came to play pool with us last time? Lowenjo said, Oh, he went to study abroad. He's studying Chinese in Italy. Taran nearly choked on his own saliva. That unreliable? How come? Lowenjo struggled expressionlessly. Shrugged. Damn, okay, let me just refocus. Why am I struggling so much today? Sorry. Lowenjo shrugged expressionlessly. He had one hand on the steering wheel and the other on the half-open window. What do you want him to be reliable for? Anyway, my dad hasn't retired yet. Though he's never said anything to me, it doesn't make a very good impression, after all. When he retires in a year or two, maybe I'll think about finding a proper one. Being on my own is pretty good too. The old man truly is addicted to work. I really can't comprehend it. I've wanted to retire for ages. Taran sighed. You should be content with your lot. Your family is very open-minded. Well, that's good at least. Lowenjo heard the meaning behind these words and immediately asked, Your family's pressuring you to get married? Like you wouldn't believe, said Taran. Lowenjo looked at him. I have niche interests. What's your problem? Taran thought, then issued a short but forceful answer. I'm poor. Lowenjo couldn't help it. He laughed out loud. I don't know why, but this just sounds like such a conversation you would have with your friends. Lowenjo couldn't. Oh, what are you laughing at? My pitiful salary is just enough to pay back a housing loan. Poor is an objective fact. Taran pulled his rumpled hair carelessly. Although I've managed to scrape together a down payment, so at any rate I qualify to go on a blind date. I think it's about enough for this lifetime. I don't think it's absolutely necessary to marry a goddess. Lowenjo showed the car's headlights on the street sign and found that they weren't far from their destination. His gaze rested calmly on the road ahead. Is there a goddess? In senior middle school, there was a classmate in the class next door who looked like Angie Chue, said Taran. We haven't been in touch for years. Maybe she's already married. And if she isn't married, that still doesn't mean I have a chance. We're nearly there. Wait, I'll call and have a word with the guys on duty. 5 minutes later, Lowenjo parked the car. Taran was about to get out when Lowenjo suddenly turned to him and said, I want to ask you something rather serious. Taran was bewildered. What? Supposing I say, just supposing you were a woman, said Lo Wenjo. Would you want to marry me or Feidu? Taran. Dot dot dot. Supposing. Taran considered it for a long time and then issued a conclusion. I don't know why I already feel as if he's about to roast the hell out of both of them. If I were a woman, I doubt I'd have any attention to spare for the two of you. I'd be spending all day worrying about how to come out to my mom. No coming out, all the women have died off. Then the other. All the other men have died off too. Saying this, Lowinger didn't manage to keep a straight face. Laughing, he said, "It's just the two of us." With over 6 billion people annihilated by Lowinger's brief words, the corners of Taran's mouth twitched. At last he unfeelingly said, "Then I guess it has to be you." Despite all he could do to hold it back, Lowinger didn't manage to restrain the wily smile of someone who had just pilfered a chicken. "You choose me? You're sure?" Taran counted on his fingers. "I can only choose you. I think Feidu won't be of legal age to marry for another 2 months. What are you doing?" Lorenzo was leaning back in his seat and laughing as if he just scored a signal victory. Oh goodness. Let me see. This novel has such grounded and realistic relationships. I love that so much. There's something so good about the dialogue. Yeah, much agree, much agree. Sorry. Taran entirely failed to understand what he had just had to be so pleased about. He thought back a bit. Then he was struck by something that made him break out in gooseflesh. Shaking his head, he got out of the car. He didn't see that Law and Joe was so despicable that he recorded this conversation. As long as it wasn't on private property like Chengguang Mansion, investigating security camera footage was pretty easy for the City Bureau's personnel. The camera at the bus stop hadn't caught what time the person they suspected being He Zhongyi had arrived in the neighborhood of Chengguang Mansion, but it did give them an enormous pleasant surprise. Around 9 p.m., it caught the person coming out of the path, then going directly towards the bus stop, waiting a few minutes, then getting on the number 34 bus. During this time, he looked up to examine the route information, which was sufficient for Lo and Zhou and Taran to determine that he was in fact He Zhongyi. Meanwhile, the psychological counseling clinic had reached the end of its business hours. The last clown stood, graciously said goodbye to the consultant, and got out a beautiful packaged box of chocolates. "You've worked hard, Mr. Bai. I thought you would like this flavor, so I brought some for you to taste." The counselor was already accustomed to this. This client named Feidu was very good at appealing to people. He handed out sweet talk free of charge, never came late, never lost control of his emotions, and usually brought along an exquisite but not overly expensive little gift. Even all the cleaners of the clinic knew him. She hadn't thanked him yet when his phone vibrated twice. Did I say Mr. Bai instead of Dr. Bai? Sorry about that. I think I might have. The counselor swallowed her words and smiled to indicate that he should go ahead and see to it. Feidu made a gesture of thanks and found that there were 2 messages on his phone. The first message was very brief. "Many thanks." The second had an audio recording attached and a message that read, "Courtesy demands reciprocity." Feidu put the phone speaker next to his ear. "Supposing you were a woman, would you want to marry me or Feidu? All the other men have died off too. It's just the two of us. Then I guess it has to be you. You choose me? You're sure?" I think Feidu wouldn't be legal. age to marry for another 2 months. Oh goodness, that must burn though. Feidu. Dot dot dot. Chapter 11. Julian 10. The counselor carefully scrutinized Feidu. For a moment, she had seen a complicated expression of unspeakable irritation flash across the young man's face, which made him seem more than ordinarily. What? Made him seem more than ordinarily young and lively. She was almost a little astonished by this. Feidu had been referred to Dr. Bai some years ago. His previous counselor had been her Shidi, an expert in young people's problems. Before that, he had gone through an unknown number of counselors. Probably Feidu himself didn't clearly remember how many. It sounded as though he was simply a difficult person. When referring the patient to her, Hershidi had naturally contacted her in advance. Dr. Bai had wanted to know what problem had brought this child to seek psychological counseling and also why his current counseling couldn't continue. In fact, I didn't know what his problem is, Hershidi had said. He's pretty cooperative. If you ask him to say something, he'll talk about it. I've tried to discuss the problem of the lack of affection during his childhood and his mother's unfortunate death and so on. He doesn't evade anything. His manner is very sincere. When you don't have anything to say next, he'll sometimes even very considerately hand you the next topic. Baiji, you understand, right? Dr. Bai quickly heard his implication. The patient was uncooperative. Dr. Bai had been working for many years. She had seen each and every type of uncooperative client. There were the ones who fabricated things during the evaluation. There were the ones whose relatives were forcing them, who persisted in thinking they didn't have a problem. There were also those who thought themselves very clever and tried to reverse analyze the counselor, and the process became a battle of wits. Oh, that does sound exhausting though. A psychological counselor wasn't all powerful. There would always be some people who, for various reasons, would never be able to build a relationship of mutual trust with the counselor, and the counseling would fall in the end. These patients were either referred to others or slowly gave up on psychological counseling and didn't come again. Feidu was, without a doubt, a special case among special cases. He belonged to the type that fabricated at the initial evaluation, and moreover, his fabrication was totally unassailable. He was also an engaging conversationalist during the sessions. He evaded very little. At first glance, he gave the impression of having nothing to hide. When he had been a little younger, he had already been very adept at self-control. If the conversation touched on a sensitive subject, he would display neither aggression nor defensiveness towards the counselor. His emotional feedback was direct from the start to finish. The only problem was that it was too direct. Encountering Kim what? Oh, encountering keenly felt pain, the healthiest and most powerful person still couldn't maintain an inward intellectual calm from start to finish. After all, a mighty AI only needs to have its batteries charged. It doesn't need psychological counseling. Dr. Bai used the countless methods without being able to establish an effective doctor patient channel of communication. She could only lay down her cards and acknowledge to him, "My level of expertise ends here. I may not be able to help you. If you believe you still need help, I can try referring you to a better counselor." She hadn't expected Feidu to refuse. Further, after going through over a month of treatment with no outcome, like someone with more money than brains, he had doubled the counseling fee, buying out the last 2 hours of Dr. Bai's schedule every Wednesday evening. And every time he came, he would very sweetly compliment, "I feel very comfortable here with you. It's really helping me." If Dr. Bai didn't think she was old enough to be his mother, it was possible she would have gotten the wrong impression and suspected this little playboy was coming to try and pick her up. Oh goodness. Okay, so I don't know. Obviously, if this was a potential reality, I'm sure this counselor would have picked up on it already. But my brain immediately went to maybe he finds comfort in her because she's kind of his mother's age, and he's just allowed to talk to her without actually feeling the pressure that he might normally feel with other counselors. Um, but yeah, he's a mystery. We shall see. So many things worth talking about in his ordinary life. So Feidu would borrow a book from her, then come to return it a week after. He would discuss the borrowed book with Dr. Bai, just as if he wasn't coming for psychological counseling, but instead was doing studies with her. Very slowly, she found that although the effects were slight, the method could sometimes make him reveal a bit of his trust, a bit of his true ideas. Though as soon as she tried to follow up, he would once again very cunningly avoid her. He was like a person living sealed in a castle, surrounded on all sides by iron fastness, with only one clear window, from behind which he quietly observed the people. Okay, this sentence is not making sense to me. One clear window, I'm just gonna say through which he quietly observed the people outside, because that makes more sense to me. Only by remaining very composed could you make him cautiously open the window a crack. Dr. Bai cautiously examined Feidu, then asked him, "A friend?" "A practical joker who bites the hand that feeds him." Feidu ground his teeth lightly and put his phone back in his pocket. "I'll be going now. I'll come bother you again next week." According to habit, Dr. Bai saw him to the door. With one hand on the door, Feidu signaled behind him with the other, then there was no need to see him out. Then he suddenly remembered something and said, "Right, Dr. Bai, I suppose next week will be my last time coming. I thought I should tell you ahead of time so you could arrange to give the time to someone else." "Oh, that's interesting. Okay. I don't remember this from the live action. Um, oh, I love the Metro 4 so much. The castle one about Fairy. Yeah, no, it is quite, and it also fits his image quite well, I think. So it just works overall. Goodness, I just lost. Damn it. Okay, hold on. Practical Joker. Okay. Dr. Bai froze and automatically asked, "You feel that your problem has been resolved? Do you won't need to come again after this?" Feidu nodded. "Yeah. Lately I felt uh, like I've slowly been moving on from where I started and uh, sampling new modes of life. I'm very grateful for your help all these years." That's interesting. Dr. Bai smiled bitterly. "But I still don't know where you started." "It's enough that I know." Feidu smiled at her. "We'll chat again next week." The next morning, Yan City's much bemoaned great traffic restrictions continued. As for one person, once again riding a jangly, broken down bicycle, looking like he was delivering takeout, some cat hair still stuck to his pant leg, in the condition having an unavoidable encounter with his luxury sedan driving rival in love. Oh my word, what a sentence! I'm confused, and at the same time, that was glorious. Who knows how another person would have reacted? Captain Lure, anyway, was habitually shameless. His psychological quality was sufficiently firm. His paddling gave the bicycle the imposing bearing of an aircraft carrier. Using the foot brake, he stopped the bike by the side of the road and raised his chin at Fedu. Come to give charity to the comrades at the traffic police team again? You local tyrant. In a while, I'll have them give you some wholesale VIP parking tickets. Well, I cannot. Fedu unhurriedly opened his mouth to return fire. I still get hit with a ticket when accompanying a friend's sister to cooperate with the police investigation. Captain Law, your bureau truly won't attend to legitimate business if there's no way to make a profit off of it. Then he looked the doors of the city bureau up and down. The words, how poor, clearly hanging on the corners of his eyes and the tips of his brows. Lowenjo looked behind him and saw a young man and woman get out of the car. The girl's eyes were red. Looking closely, there was some resemblance to Zhang Donglai. Lowenjo got off his bike-shaped carrier. Zhang Ting? Zhang Donglai had a little sister named Zhang Ting. Lowenjo wasn't well acquainted with her. After all, she was a well-behaved young lady who didn't get tossed in little dark rooms in police stations for speeding like her useless big brother. Zhang Ting was about to answer when the man next to her stopped her. The man walked up, gave Luo Wenzhou a business card, and rushed to open his mouth before Zhang Ting could. Hello, officer. I'm a lawyer. I have accompanied. I have accepted the position of assisting the party Zhang Donglai. I'd like to understand something of the circumstances of the investigation from you. Luo Wenzhou frowned. His gaze crept over the lawyer's face. When he was neither speaking nor smiling, his countenance had a sort of haughty coldness. Lowenjo didn't move to accept the business card. He looked at Fedu. Fedu was leaning against the car, playing on his phone, as if the matter was no concern of his. Lowenjo spoke past the lawyer to Zhang Ting. Did you talk to your family about hiring a lawyer? Does your uncle know? Zhang Ting stared. Without waiting for her answer, Lowenjo took the lawyer's business card and smiled hypocritically. You came very promptly. 24 hours haven't passed yet. In these circumstances, the sooner a lawyer gets involved, the better. Isn't that right? It depends. Not to be outdone, the lawyer gave him a fake smile in return. We've come to safeguard the party's fundamental rights. Just then, a weak greeting came from behind him. Good morning, Captain Law. Luwenjo looked around and saw Xiao Haitang. Okay, sorry. Let me try again. Luwenjo looked around and saw Xiao Haiyang standing at the door hugging a stack of folders. The day before he'd been brought to City Bureau by Taran. Today, unexpectedly, showing initiative, he'd come himself. Perfect! Luwenjo looked at him and smiled. Pointing behind him, he said to the lawyer, Why don't you go and speak to the person in charge of this case? You there, go on. Xiao Yang still hadn't come around from inexplicably having a lawyer thrown full in his face by Luo and Zhou when the lawyer started pestering him with a string of questions. He was entirely bewildered. Where is Deputy Captain Tao? Luo and Zhou smiled benevolently at him. Taran has some business at home to take care of. He asked for the day off. Xiao, this case is still your people's responsibility after all. You'll be able to tell it best and cleanest. Having disposed of Xiao Haiyang and the lawyer, Luwenjo grew serious and turned to Feidu. What's this all about? Feidu raised his eyebrows. I don't know. I'm just a driver who hasn't reached the legal age to marry. Come to drop them off on my way. Oh my goodness, he is so bitter about that. Lowenjo rolled his eyes at him, his gaze sweeping over the stunned Jiang Ting. He got out his phone, clicked a few times, and pulled out a photograph of her Zhong Yi. I'll make this short. Have you seen this man? Presented without warning with a human face, Jiang Ting was startled into backing up. She instinctively hid behind Feidu. Feidu raised his hand to block Lo Wenjo's wrist. Can't you be a little bit more polite to a young lady? Jiang Ting. Fixing a look on Jiang Ting, Lo Wenjo said in a quiet but severe voice, This man was killed 2 nights ago. Your brother is under serious suspicion. This is a homicide inquiry. Every sentence of your testimony is essential. What are you doing hiding behind someone who has nothing to do with this? Jiang Ting trembled and clutched Feidu's sleeve. It's all right. Bending slightly, Feidu spoke next to her ear. Ting Ting, tell the truth. Captain Law thinks the same as I do. We both believe your brother can't be involved in this. Perhaps taking some comfort from him, Jiang Ting hesitated a moment, then took the phone from Lo Wenjo's hand. For a long time, she couldn't calm down and nearly bit her thumbnail down into the quick. Then she nodded irresolutely. The photograph doesn't look very like him, but I think I did see him. I have an internship at the Economic and Trade Center. One day I went downstairs to buy bubble tea and ran into a weird person. She pointed at the photograph on Lo Wenjo's phone. It was this person. He stopped me and asked whether I knew someone called Feng Nyang-ge. Oh goodness, okay. I kind Oh no! Stay safe. Have a good week if we don't see you tomorrow for some villain. But thank you for stopping by. Um, I'm wondering if I should maybe take my 10-minute break now because we're at the start of a new chapter. What do you guys think? Because then we can restart at 5 past, I think would be a good idea. Let me just check something. Okay, yeah, let's quickly stop it there and then we shall resume at 5 past and we can see if we can maybe get in 2 more chapters before the end of the stream. Okay, Okay, we are back. I hope everything is fine. The audio is still good, or at least decent enough. Um, okay, I have coffee with me now. Ready to get going again. Chapter 12, Julian 11. Okay. Law and Joe looked fixedly into her eyes. Surname Feng, full name Feng Nian or Feng Nian Ge? I don't know. That's what it sounded like, but he had a bit of an accent. I don't know what the characters were, or even if the last character was a form of address or part of the name, said Lo Ting numbly. It was already late that day, and he suddenly jumped out, smiling so warningly and saying weird things. He seemed a little crazy, and I didn't have anyone with me. I was a little scared, so I kept saying, "I don't know him. I want to, I wanted to go around him." "When did this happen?" asked Lo Winter. "A little while ago," said Jiang Ting. "A while ago there was a kind of mentally unstable flasher running around near our company. A lot of people had seen him. Our boss even didn't dare to have us work overtime. But I happened to have something to finish that day, so I stayed a while. By the time I got downstairs, there weren't many people around, so I was a little scared to start with. Otherwise, I wouldn't have called my brother to come pick me up." Feidu remembered the delivery man he'd met at the coffee shop and suddenly couldn't quite understand something. Thereupon, he couldn't resist putting in a word. "And then? And then? Did he pester you?" Jiang Ting nodded. "I saw my brother had come, so I went around him to cross the street to go meet them. But he suddenly started following me for some reason. I was panicking a little, so I ran a few steps and loudly said, 'Who are you? I don't know you.' And they heard. My brother may have thought that he was harassing me, so he came over and hit him." "He Zhongyi, the man in the photograph, did he fight back?" asked Lo Winter. "No," said Jiang Ting, her gaze falling as if she couldn't quite bear to go on. "He only covered his head and dodged. I saw then that he actually looked pretty young. I thought I'd been too sensitive and quickly stopped my brother." Feidu looked up slightly. "You went to meet them? Who else was there?" Jiang Ting said, "My boyfriend was driving. My brother was a little drunk." "I see," said Feidu, then made a perfectly right and realistic display of disappointment. "How come all the good girls have boyfriends already? Who's moving so fast?" Oh, goodness. Making such a weird diversion at such a time, but didn't tell him to be quiet. Jiang Ting blushed a little at his suggestive words. "It's Rong Jun's Zhao Hua Chang. Don't you know him too? The Rongjun law firm's attorney, Zhao?" Feidu seemingly inadvertently looked past her at Lo Wenjo. "No wonder the lawyer came so promptly." Lo Wenjo asked, "And after that, did you see her Zhongli again?" Jiang Ting shook her head. Looking at Lo Wenjo, she stammered out, "Captain Lo, my brother couldn't have killed someone." Lo Wenjo's expression relaxed. He stared at Jiang Ting. "If your brother hasn't done anything wrong, we won't unjustly accuse him. Even if we were so unreasonable that we wanted to pick someone at random to unjustly accuse, we still couldn't pick out your old Director's General's relative, right? Rest assured, since your brother couldn't have killed anyone, nothing will happen to him here." Jiang Ting heard him, but it was no use. The useless Jiang Donglai really wasn't easy to handle, so while she'd said he couldn't have, inside she wasn't so sure. "Go in and give them a statement," said Lo Wenjua. "I'll have Lang Chao come. You can tell her the truth. It'll be all right." Before he had finished speaking, Feidu had already moved slightly in front of Zhang Ting and beckoned to her like he was coaxing a child. He quietly said, "Don't be afraid, I'll come with you." I find it interesting because it very much seems like he is trying to tell Lo and Jo, okay, so just so you know, the lawyer is her boyfriend, that kind of thing, and maybe even hinting to more. But because of Lo and Jo's reaction, I can't figure out if he picked up on that. Um, this conduct of waiting hand and foot on someone else's little sister really made it seem like he was the brother-in-law. Lo and Joe couldn't stand this degenerate burgess lifestyle of chatting up girls for no reason. He wanted to sneer, but he was afraid of upsetting Zhang Ting again, so he had to let it go. Beidou accompanied Zhang Ting into the city bureau and sat waiting outside holding a paper cup while she was giving her statement. After a moment, Luo and Zhou strolled over and sat next to him. "You people, calling in lawyers after the first sign of trouble. It puts us in an awkward position." "I didn't tell them to call a lawyer," said Feidu. Just when Luo and Zhou was thinking in wonder that he could actually use human speech to defend himself, he quickly added another sentence that didn't sound so sensible. "If Zhang Donglai had killed someone and I wanted to get him out of it, I'd have no need for this useless lawyer. I'd give you another murderer." When he spoke with Taran, Feidu was forever showing a sound and law-abiding aspect. Speaking to him, however, it was forever the wretched and grim aspect, defying laws human and divine. Neither end seemed especially like the truth anyway. Law and Joe didn't know when he was just running his mouth and when he was telling the truth. "You believe that money is all powerful?" said Lowenjaw, his expression stern and grave, but his voice indolent, his manner lying somewhere between joking and proper. "Comrade, your views are very dangerous. If it's all powerful, that's only because you don't have enough money. Sorry, if it isn't all powerful, that's only because you don't have enough money." Feidu's expression didn't alter. He changed the subject. "Where's Taran?" "Much obliged to President Fei for showing us the way," said Lowen Jaw, "but the manner of showing it could stand discussion. It can't serve as evidence in court. I had to send him to find some evidence we could use. Otherwise, when the lawyer you people brought forced us to release Zhang Donglai, will we have to release him or not?" This speech was very indistinct. It sounded very much like he was giving a spy's countersign. Had the walls had ears, they would probably still have been at all, but been all at sea. Feidu, however, knew that he was talking about the cigarette ends. Though he had promptly brought the cigarette ends over, in the end they were still subjects of unknown origin. Even if Lowendrad trusted him, the uh, collegiate bench wouldn't. The police had to follow his clue to find other traces. "Even if I hadn't touched them, you wouldn't have been in time to get them. You wouldn't even be able to determine whether the person was the victim." Feidu shrugged. "Someone once said to me that everything that happens in this world leaves traces, but whether you can find them depends on each side's luck. Is your luck good this time?" Ooh, the mystery, the intrigue. Like, I just love the banter between them. Lo and Joe suddenly froze. The blow for blow probing, bantering, and hinting vanished utterly from his face. For an instant, the corner of his mouth were even pulled a little tight. Lo and Joe subconsciously got his cigarette out of his pocket. thought of something, and put them back. Instantly, there was a deep silence between the two of them. Neither looked at the other. They only sat side by side, with a distance of about 1 meter between them, like complete strangers. The windows and doors were locked. None of the rooms showed signs of forced entry. The most advanced security system of the time was entirely untouched. When John abruptly opened his mouth to speak, his voice very low and his speech very fast, as if he had already recited these words many times and could smoothly say them without missing a single punctuation mark. Oh, I wish I could say things like that. She had done her makeup and changed her clothes, even put on music. The scene had a certain feeling of ritual. There was a suicide note arranged on the writing desk next to her. It was analysed, the handwriting confirmed to belong to the deceased. The person who had written the letter showed clear depressive tendencies, which tallied with her daily use of antidepressant medication. The deceased was an adult, with no illness or injury that may have led her to be unable to act for herself. No drugs sufficient to cause unconsciousness were found in her system. There were also no defensive wounds on her body. There's all the evidence we collected at the time. You were the one who reported the case. You reached the scene before we did. Unless you want to tell me that you hid some evidence back then, it was without a doubt a suicide. Now we get to the real thing. Feidu didn't speak. His sitting posture seemed very relaxed, legs crossed, upper body leaning forward slightly, one hand casually lying on his knee and the other holding a paper cup that was no longer steaming. His long and slender fingers were tapping out a beat of the rhythm on the rim of the cup, as if there was a melody no one else could hear, filling the air. I said to you then, everything that happens in this world leaves traces, as long as it's real. Without traces to support your opinion, however much you want to believe in it, it's still only a dead end of the imagination. Fedu, you may have had a certain intuition, but we can't do our jobs based on intuition. My intuition tells me every day that I can make 5 million. Lowindra's gaze stopped on Fedu's fingers. Then, in an almost callously objective tone, he said, and you know, there's a theory abroad that says that if someone wants to kill herself, she may suddenly use some means to confess it to people close to her. You heard of her confession back then. Fedu's fingers suddenly stiffened. Lowendra reached out his arm, pulled the paper cup out of his hand, and put it aside. If you really want to talk over this case with me, I maintain my judgment to this day, but it doesn't matter whose judgment it is. This isn't important anymore. She's been dead for 7 years. When the coffin is closed, you can judge a person's life. The relevant evidence has all disappeared. This isn't going to sound good, but if she's reincarnated, she'd already be attending primary school. Damn. Yeah, you're right. That does not sound good. Um, the living can cling on without letting go. It's a form of emotional sustenance, but there's no sense in blindly clinging to the wrong course. Maintaining his original posture, Fedu sat without moving a muscle, as if he had turned into a statue. Just then, Jiang Ting and the lawyer came out side by side, and Feidu's gaze moved slightly, giving off a trace of living energy. I don't accept your conclusions, Officer Liu, said Feidu. Hearing this, Luo Wenzhou wasn't at all taken aback. He only shrugged. I could come back quickly. I see we're getting into the trauma. Yes, welcome to the pain. And welcome back to the pain, shall we say. Feidu adjusted his jacket and stood to meet Jiang Ting and the lawyer. He looked down at Lo and Jaw. There was no smile on his face. His expression was even somewhat somber. But perhaps there is some merit in your heartfelt advice. Lo and Jaw was surprised, but after saying this, Feidu once again put on his graceful mask and left with Jiang Ting. They didn't have any further interaction. Feidu had just opened the car door for Jiang Ting when he saw a car with the police plate stop at the gate of the city bureau. The driver got out first, pointed to the city bureau, and said a few words. Next, a thin, middle-aged woman staggered out of the car. Her mouth was open, her face both frightened and dazed. Her fingers clutched the car door. The printed cotton of her pants trembled faintly around her legs, which were as thin as sesame stalks. The driver closed the car door and, half supporting, half pushing, took the woman towards the Yan City's city bureau. Sigh. Oh, goodness. Clutching the hand of the person next to her as if it were her last hope, the woman walked a few trembling steps, then slowly crouched down and let out a breathless sounding sob. Then she stopped for a moment before beginning to wail hysterically. All the people passing in the street stopped. Some even got out their phones. Feidu's brows creased slightly. He heard the lawyer chatting to Jiang Ting. Their so-called serious suspicion has no evidence to support. Miss Zhang, set your mind at ease. I'll stay here to keep an eye on things. When the time comes, they'll have to release him. He Zhongyi's mother suffered from anemia. She has to go for dialysis constantly. He was the family's only source of income. Lang Chao was saying quickly next to Lo and Zhou. The sound of the woman's crying had the power to penetrate into the city bureau and echo. Lang Chao frowned as if she couldn't quite bear it. Will she be all right crying like this? She's already sick. I don't want something else to happen. Lo and Zhou didn't have time to answer. Another officer from the criminal investigation team came trotting over. Chief, the Flower Market District Sub-Bureau has sent in a request. Because the murderer is suspected of having moved the corpse, the original scene of the crime is unclear, and the Sub-Bureau's jurisdictional power are limited. They want to pass the 5-0 case to us. Captain Law, the lawyer Jiang Ting brought, keeps questioning our procedure for taking the suspect into custody. We didn't have enough evidence to arrest Zhang Donglai. Should we release him? Chief Law. Oh damn, that's just a lot of people piling on at once. Rowanjo pressed his hand down, pressing down everyone's simultaneous talk. Amidst the sound of Hejongyi's mother crying, he picked up his phone. Taran, go ahead. Bonjour, I've got the surveillance footage for the number 34. Oh, okay. That's a lot to process. Let me just grab some coffee before we get into the next chapter. I feel like we're making good progress though. We're probably, I don't know. I'd have to check how many chapters we still have to go. Because we're just doing the first volume right now, and then we'll get back to it after we finish volume 3 of Erha. Okay. Chapter 13, Julian 12. Around 9:10, He Zhongyi got on the number 34 bus at the East Nanping Road stop. When the number 34 arrived at the Wenchang intersection, stopped 20-some minutes later, He Zhongyi got off. A security camera near Wenchang intersection caught his back. Several minutes later, he walked out of range of the security cameras. He didn't show up again. Lo Wen-jo had grown up in Yan City. He heard the names, he understood the approximate location. Wenchang Street was to the southeast of the Flower Market District Commercial Center. In other words, after leaving Chengguang Mansion, the victim had not only not gone home, he had gone even further in the opposite direction. "I am at Wenchang's intersection now," Sharon said over the phone amidst the noisy din of traffic. So, at any rate, He Jong-yi wasn't in the West District between 9 and 9:30. The argument the people living around there heard at the time wasn't related to the homicide. Ma Xiaowei was wronged. What was Wang Honglai doing snatching him up in such a hurry? If I didn't know better, I'd think the police had killed He Jong-yi and wanted to find someone to take the blame. Yeah, I have to say that kind of is the vibe it's giving. Captain Law. Just then, a criminal policeman ran over and passed Law Wen-jo a stack of materials. The medical examiners have sent over their reports. They've deduced that the victim, He Jong-yi's approximate time of death, was between 9 p.m. and 10 p.m. on the night of May 20th. Between 9 p.m. and 10 p.m., Lo Wen-jo took the report and flipped through it. He didn't respond to Taoran's suspicions. According to this conclusion, there's a great likelihood that He Jong-yi was murdered not long after getting off the bus. Taoran must have found a quiet place. The noise coming over the phone decreased significantly. Around 9, Chengguang Mansion's dinner party was just ending. Zhang Donglai was outside. The security cameras in the courtyard caught his face for the first time. He stayed in the courtyard for a while, then went back indoors. At 9:45, the cameras in the courtyard caught him again. He spoke to a girl for a bit. Then they went into the woods holding hands. Lo Wen-jo sighed. "I see young Master Zhang's itinerary was really crowded. He must have been so busy and he didn't have time to spare to kill anyone." Oh goodness. If he doesn't have an identical twin, Zhang Donglai is clearly out of suspicion. Should we release him? I took notes. Oh, okay. There seem to be 32 chapters in the book, volume 1. Damn, I didn't think it was so long, but then again, I read it all in one go, so I didn't pay much attention to the chapters. Probably I would be much the same. I like when I'm reading a novel and it's like, oh, there's 100 chapters, and then it seems so intimidating at the start, and then by the end it's like, oh, that went by so fast. But yeah, I'll double check. That sounds about right because I did check it before we started, but I've forgotten now. But I'll double check when the first first volume is supposed to end, and then at least we'll know more or less how far we still have to go and how long it'll take. Um, Tunnel vision. Yep. Uh, no, I just lost my. Okay. Lo Wen-jo declined to comment. He asked, "What else did you turn up?" "There is also a cell phone record," said Taoran. "Let me tell you, this is a strange thing. Didn't the victim get a phone call while he was waiting outside Chengguang Mansion? I got his number from his roommate and went to investigate his phone records. On the night of the 20th, He Jong-yi called an unregistered number several times." "Oh?" Lo Wen-jo raised his brows. "What's so strange about that? Hadn't we already determined that the victim must have known the killer?" Taran said, "The strange thing isn't the phone calls. That night around 9:50, Ho Jung-Yi's phone received a text message from another untraceable number. The contents are location of setting accounts changed to gold triangle lot, May 20. What do you think that means? Settling accounts? Settling what accounts? Settling them with who? What is the golden triangle lot? I feel like that name sounds a little. Lowenjo suddenly opened his mouth to interrupt him. Don't worry about that for now. Wenchang Street is at the heart of the old city sector. There are a lot of people, and past 9 isn't very late. Take some guys to go ask around. See if there's anyone who may have seen him. Taran froze. Before he could say anything, Lowenjo had already hurriedly hung up his phone. He couldn't resist frowning at his cell phone. Before, Taran had thought that Wang Honglai only got up to some tricks like shifting responsibilities, enjoying the benefits of his position without doing any of the work. Therefore, in order to prevent him from obstructing the course of the investigation with his lax methods, they would have to find a pretext to bring him down. But now, Taran was dimly becoming aware that this case had more to it than politics. The City Bureau's criminal investigation team's movements were very orderly. Less than an hour later, the criminal policemen took up their positions, got their marching orders, and began asking around everywhere, carrying a clear close-up photograph of He Jung-yi. The type of work was ordinarily one of the criminal policeman's daily activities. It had to be done. It was extremely time-consuming and dull, about as miserable as a process as handing out leaflets by the road. They had to repeat the same words countless times, and whether they would succeed in tracking down any trace depended entirely on luck. Because eyes aren't camera lenses, they can't retain an impression of every person they see. And the city was too big. Everyone went around and around in the powerful current, leaving early and coming back late. Most neighbors were only on nodding terms. On public transportation, there was only a field of lowered heads. Through the palm-sized screen, people could observe the forest going on the far side of the great ocean, explore fantastic stories from further, furthest north to furthest south, participate in all the big and small trending discussions taking place over 9.6 million square kilometers. Every hour and every minute, they were all amazingly busy. Of course, they didn't have the time to spare to remember one unfashionably dressed worker. Goodness, okay, that was a lot. That was a lot of information. My brain just kind of frazzled a little bit. Because he really was too ordinary, too dull, not worth paying any attention to, and not worth temporarily existing in anyone's memories, dead or alive. That's so sad, oh my goodness. This time, the police force's luck had run out. Taran and the others worked with the sun beating down on them, and when the sun had rolled down behind the mountains, they were still empty-handed. Deputy Captain, they say they haven't seen him over here. Deputy Tao, we made inquiries on the street to the west, pulled up all the security cameras from the stores facing the street, and watched them one by one. Guess what we got? Nothing. There's an old man who says he may have seen him. I asked which way he went, and he pointed me towards a construction site. Up to this point, they hadn't been able to connect the threads to show where He Jung-yi had gone after getting off the bus, nor where he had been murdered. This young man, not 20 years old, had come to enormous Yan City less than a year ago. On the silent film of the security cameras, he had travelled an arc around the centre of the city, and then disappeared without a trace, dying in some unknown corner. And when he was dead, his body still hadn't been allowed to rest. In a bizarre course of events, it had been transported, brought all the way back to the West Flower Market district. He had gone back to where he'd come from, making no impact on the flourishing sector's urban activities. This is just getting sadder and sadder, oh my goodness. Taran was at his wits' end. He had no choice but to disband the throng of criminal policemen who had been roasted by the scorching sun until oil was pouring out of them, then briefly report to law and juror that they had failed to make any advances in their work. I figure I've made no headway here, said Taran. I think we ought to go back and perform an analysis of the victim. Are you out somewhere? Law and Joe seemed to be in someone's car just now, because the sound of a car radio reporting on the road conditions was coming through the phone. The anchor was just using the process of elimination to describe all the places in the city without traffic jam during the evening rush hour. Law and Joe agreed indistinctly, paused, then turned off the radio. Or you could think of some way to keep following up on the Jiangdong Lai thread. Jiangdong Lai? Taran had been talking all day. His throat was steaming, and his brain was a little foggy. He blankly asked, Hasn't he already been virtually cleared of suspicion? Jiang Ting said that when He Zhongyi stopped her, he asked her about a mysterious individual surnamed Feng. If He Zhongyi hadn't incorrectly identified him, then the mysterious individual has likely crossed paths with Jiang Ting and her crowd. Second, I don't know whether you've noticed, He Zhongyi's left the area of Chengguang Mansion at about the same time that Zhang Donglai came out of the club into the courtyard for the first time. Zhang Donglai obviously wasn't planning to leave Chengguang Mansion then, so aside from getting a breath of fresh air, why did he go out? Taran stared at first, then quickly came around. There were people who left when the dinner party ended. He went to see them off. You mean it's likely that the person He Zhongyi wanted to see was among the crowd of people who left then? That feels like a little bit of a leap, but well done on him for making that. Because once he said it, it feels very reasonable. 10 points, no bonus. And then there's that suspicious phone. The reason we found Zhong Donglai in the first place yesterday was because of that phone. Going by Zhang Donglai's character, he may not even know how to write the words formal apology. But if the phone didn't come from him, then the person who gave He Zhongyi the phone. What? Then did the person who gave He Zhongyi the phone do it under Zhang Donglai's name? Or did the victim lie to his friends about it? Why would he tell such a lie? Yes, some of it I don't remember, like in terms of how all of it connects. So it is kind of interesting seeing all of it play out again now. I love how, uh, while very humorous moments mix with the saddest storylines in this novel, such a lovely back and forth. Yes, that's part of what I love about both MXTX and Priest is I feel like the balance is really good and it makes the sad moments easier to bear. Joe had said this much on one breath of air. He took another breath and counseled, Look, why don't you get off work? Come a little early tomorrow. Before the 48 hours run out, question Zhang Donglai again. I'll tell Lang Chao to take a little team to investigate He Zhongyi. Before he hung up the phone, Taran suddenly said, Are you in the West Flower Market District now? Lowenjo, who was just sitting in a black cab, paused. With a smile that wasn't quite a smile, he said, The only person on earth who can track me is my wife. Tao Tao, are you sure you want to ask? Lo Wenju, oh, sorry, are you investigating Wang Huangliang? Taoran ignored his nonsense. Lowering his voice, he said, I don't want early promotion. I'm not concerned about how Director Zhang plans to fix Wang Huangliang, and I don't want to know who's going to be the next Director General. But if someone has committed a crime, whatever his position, it's our responsibility to arrest him. Your responsibility right now is to catch He Zhongyi's murderer. Lo Wenju laughed. All right, you little devil. If you have so many questions, let me tell you. I currently only have a suspicion that Wang Huangliang has done something wrong. No matter what his position is, labeling him as a criminal based solely on the information contained in one report would be rather sloppy. I'm leading the initial campaign. As soon as I have hard evidence pointing to him, you'll all have your share of overtime. I won't leave you out. Lo Wenju hung up the phone and turned to the black cab's driver, who was sitting stock still. Oh, goodness, okay. The black cab driver hadn't been willing to tell him his full name. He only called himself Xiao Zhen. He was full of mistrust aimed at all the two-legged animals on earth. His gaze met Lo Wenju's in the rearview mirror, and he looked away quickly, pretending that he wasn't concerned with the subject of his phone call. Lo Wenju said, This case is currently under investigation. When the investigation is over, you'll be able to reveal the details as you see fit. But while the investigation is ongoing, I'll trouble you to keep them secret. Xiao Zhen's gaze flashed. What are you talking about? I don't understand that. Lo Wenju fixed the young cab driver with a look through his sunglasses. Last time you told me that your big sister was murdered by Wang Huangliang and his drug trafficking gang. But I went back and looked into it and found that your sister was arrested for prostitution and later died of a drug overdose. Zheng Cheng, this touches on the person in charge of public safety for a whole district and all the people working under him. We can't prosecute based solely on your words. When you exposed Zheng Cheng's full name, the young man slammed on the brakes, stopping by the side of the road. Lo Wenju's expression didn't flicker. You're parked in violation of traffic regulations. If you get a ticket, I won't grant you leniency. Zheng Cheng's face was ashen, humiliation and anger mingling in his expression. He stared fiercely at Lo Wenju. My sister wasn't that type of person. Lo Wenju was entirely unmoved. He knocked on the car window and said, one syllable at a time. Evidence. My sister didn't have time to tell me anything, said Zheng Cheng. She wasn't sleeping at night then, and she was always afraid of something. I asked her, but she would only get mad and tell me to mind my own business. I overheard her talking to someone on the phone. Who? Zheng Cheng rubbed his eyes and quickly shook his head. Lo Wenju passed him a tissue. Now, have you ever heard of the Golden Triangle lot? Zheng Cheng froze. In the Fei clan building, a secretary knocked on the door of Fei Du's office and went in. President Fei? Rongshan's attorney Zhao is here. Fei Du nodded. Right on time. Ask him to come in. Since she had started working for Fei Du, the secretary hadn't worked overtime. She had also never seen him receive work-related guests at this hour. She couldn't help feeling a sense of novelty. Smiling radiantly, she asked the guest to come into Fei Du's office. She poured tea and surreptitiously examined him. She found that this attorney Zhao was exquisitely dressed and could be described as tall and handsome. but he had a particular kind of youthfulness about his countenance. The combination of the two factors gave him a particularly pure-hearted quality. That's interesting because the attorney from the show that I remember did not give me that vibe at all, I'm sorry to say. He gave me a very predatory vibe. The secretary had already been aware that rich kid Feidu shunned neither men nor women, and that he especially liked the quiet, unrefined, not too forward type. She saw the light at once. Before the light had passed, she met Feidu's not quite smiling gaze. The secretary stuck out her tongue, then quickly took on a professional discretion of a palace steward calmly kneeling at one side, minding her own business, seeing nothing. Oh my goodness. But also nice to kind of have confirmation of him being bi, because I did wonder. I don't know why I was wondering that, but I did wonder. Because I think I was thinking, um, is he actually interested in women or is he just flirting with them for the sake of flirting? Because I could see Priest writing either kind of character. Okay, where are we? Um, Rongshen were the company's legal advisors engaged in connection with some special products. Oh, that's a weird sentence. Chin in his hand, Feidu solemnly listened to Attorney Zhao carefully explain several documents fast enough for spit to fly, then mercilessly went off topic. How is Ting Ting doing? Attorney Zhao paused. He seemed not to have expected that this ignorant and incompetent second generation patriarch wouldn't even be willing to pretend for a while, but he quickly recovered. With his expression unchanged, he put down the materials he had spent so much time preparing. I heard from my criminal law colleague that the police's evidence was insufficient to make an arrest. President Zhang should be released tomorrow. It'll be alright. Ting Ting has only suffered a false alarm. Thank you for your concern. Ting Ting isn't the only one I'm concerned about. Feidu smiled ambiguously at him, the smile containing 1,000 words. But he didn't say anything else. It seems that the critical moment, knowing talented young people like Attorney Zhao, really is very useful. Would you do me the honor of dining with me? Oh goodness, I feel like I can't remember from the show, but I feel like even now, Feidu suspects, and I don't know if I'm misreading it. Attorney Zhao frowned faintly, as though he had been planning to refuse, but Feidu had already stood up, and brooking no argument, was gesturing at him in invitation. The Fei clan was Rangshan's largest client. The two sides had been working together since before Feidu had taken over. They had always been one of Rangshan's major bankrollers. Zhang Hao Cheng couldn't afford not to defer to him. He was very unwillingly stood up. I don't know whether you had any dietary restrictions, so I had them throw something together. Walking ahead of him, Fei Du seemingly carelessly said, "Oh, Hao Chang, where are you from? Are you a local?" Oh no, he definitely knows. Oh my goodness. This was a very this was very easy to answer bit of idle conversation, but Zhao Hao Chang was suddenly caught up short. Only when Fei Du noticed something wasn't right and turned to look at him in surprise did Zhao Hao Chang finally avoid his gaze and murmur an indistinct "right," not answering the question either way. Yeah, no, I mean that is not even pretending to try and make sense of anything. Oh, it's gonna annoy me that we're so close to the start of a chapter, but we still have enough time to like continue. I so wish we could just finish neatly on the end of a chapter. That would make me so happy. Okay, anyway. Chapter 14, Julian 12. We already had a Julian 12, did we not? Weird. On May 24th, the four days had passed since the young man, He Jong-yi, was killed. Wearing gloves, Luo Wen-jo flipped through an old photo album. He had taken it from the black cab driver Zheng Cheng. Zheng Chen and his sister Chen Yun were twins. They had grown up locally, raised by their grandparents. Afterwards, the elderly couple had passed away one after another. The sister, Chen Yun, had tested into university. Chen Zhen's grades had been bad, however, so he had simply abandoned school early and gone out to earn money. The girl in the photographs was very delicately made, smiling broadly in every picture, revealing a pair of not very symmetrical little canine teeth. This was the only thing she had left behind. The circumstances of her death had been obscure due to the undignified manner of it. The police, on the grounds of suspecting the presence of hidden drugs, had searched through her personal possessions several times. Neither Zhang Yun's second-hand computer nor her cell phone had been left behind. Luo Wen-jo flipped through the photo album from beginning to end. His gaze paused on a few photographs that seemed to be mementos of the university club events. There was a girl in them who seemed very close to Chen Yun. On the backs of the photographs, there was a date written in pencil, and the note, "At the Art of Tea Club with Xiao Que, I think. Glad you were there." Ah, Xiao Que. Owen turned the cell phone record he'd found about half a month before her death. Chen Yun had made a phone call to a user named Xie Yin. Just then, Lang Chao knocked on the door of his office and beckoned to him, more dead than alive. "Chief, come watch the moron. Tickets 10 yen each. Your money back if he isn't moronic." What on earth? Okay. Yan City's City Bureau Criminal Investigation Team's appreciation of young Master Zhang was extraordinary. Out of every 10 sentences he said, 9 were nonsense. Being detained at the City Bureau for 48 hours had boiled off his initial scant brains. It was anyone's guess what had been left behind in the empty shell. The intellectual level of the words that came out was deeply affecting. Feng Niange? Never heard of him. I don't know anyone with that surname, Feng. Is this a man or a woman? Why don't you tell me what they look like? I may have slept with them and not remembered the name. Okay. Was there anyone I knew at Zhengguang Mansion on the night of the 20th? I knew all of them. What? Who was there? Ow! Police uncles. Honorable police uncles. That night I got half a liter of white wine poured into me. I don't know how many glasses of red, cut with half a dozen of champagne. The Holy Trinity. I was doing all right if I could still remember my own name. How could I tell you anyone who was there? How weird, this man. He's not making any sense. I haven't quarreled with anyone recently. I'm very friendly. Huh? Hitting people counts? Oh, then I really can't say. So I hit them. What are they gonna do to get back at me? Don't you know who I am? This person is deeply aggravating. How many times have I said it? That phone didn't come from me. I only give gifts to my intimate friends. Anyway, if I were gonna give someone something, it wouldn't be a stupid phone, right? Who are you insulting? Aside from spending money and sleeping, young Master Zheng's daily life was full of chaos. Matters big and small passed before his eyes like mist, making absolutely no impact on him. His psychological state could be described as free of earthly concerns. That is the politest way I have ever heard anyone be insulted. Lo Wenzhou listened in for a while and issued a categorical assertion concerning Zhang Donglai. He said, "This child got dropped on his head by his dad when he was little." Oh no. Lo Wenzhou listened in for. Oh, sorry. With all the patience in the world, Taran tried every possible method to quiz him again and again from each and every angle. Yet he was still unable to extract any useful information from Zhang Donglai's carelessly formatted memory. Oh, goodness. In a flash, the time came. The lawyer Jiang Ting had found stood at the city bureau's doors, contending on strong grounds that the criminal investigation team had to release Zhang Donglai. "There's really nothing I can do." Taran let out 2 long breaths and helplessly shrugged his shoulders at Lo Wenzhou. Lo Wenzhou considered and lightly lifted his chin. "The evidence is insufficient. Let's release him." "Captain Luo." "Chief?" Lang Chao pulled at Lo Wenzhou. "Chief, yesterday, when He Zhongyi's mom was howling outside, some busybodies filmed her. Now there's a whole bunch of people who think there's no smoke without fire and are waiting to see the fur fly. If you release him like that, how will it look when it gets out?" I mean, you guys can't win either way, it feels like. "We can release Zhang Donglai." Taran thought about it, then proposed, "According to the victim's time of death and last known whereabouts, his alibi is fairly clear-cut." "No, don't mention any of that for now. Just say that evidence is insufficient," said Lo Wenzhou, interrupting him. "Don't announce the details of the investigation. Release him." Hearing this arbitrary decision, Lang Chao couldn't help saying, "Chief, have you been infected by Zhang Donglai? It can infect you through a window. His mental deficiency must be a virulent infectious disease." Lo Wenzhou rapped once on the back of his head. "Glib, aren't you? Careful you don't get laugh lines. Oh my goodness." Meanwhile, Taran muttered quietly to himself for a moment, then thoughtfully said, "You're thinking." "Right, starting now, no one is allowed to reveal any details concerning the course of this investigation. Tell them the evidence is insufficient. No comment. We're currently once again investigating all of the victims' relationships, starting from childhood." Lo Wenzhou nodded at Taran, then evenly said, "This is discipline. Anyone leaks, I'll deal with them. Disperse." A little transient worker had met an unusual death. The city bureau's director general's nephew was a murder suspect, and he had been quickly set free due to insufficient evidence. This news was even more explosive than Lang Chao and the others had been afraid of. Before the procedures of setting Zhang Donglai free had been finalized, all kinds of print and digital media were already staking out the city bureau's doors. The criminal investigation team's phones were like a hotline, ringing one after another, wave after wave. Even Director Zhang's replacement, Director Lu, was alarmed and called Lo Wenzhou in to question him. Director Lu looked out the window at the people crowding outside the reception area. With a rather grave expression, he asked Lo Wenzhou, "Are you sure you can handle it?" Okay, I think we're gonna end it here because there's probably still quite a way to go before the end of the chapter. I think maybe next week I'll try and just stick it out and complete another chapter because it seems like for the most part these chapters work out quite well in terms of timing, but because we didn't start at the start of a chapter this time around, we can't end at the end of a chapter. So I don't know. I'm not sure when this week's lives will be, because this coming week, because I'm away during the weekend, so I can't do them on the weekend. But I might try and do on Wednesday and Thursday. We'll have to see. Let me know what you guys think. But that's currently kind of the days I'm eyeing. I can't say for sure though. It might be Thursday and Wednesday, Tuesday and Wednesday instead. Sorry. I'm glad you guys enjoyed it. And yeah, otherwise, I'll see you guys either tomorrow or next week. Bye!